If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we shall review the Chronicles of Darkness corebook as I present my thoughts and opinions on its presentation and mechanics to help you better decide whether this is the game for you. Cast your mind back to the 18th of August 2022, when we popped a cherry on the Lore by Night podcast. I reviewed my first Chronicles of Darkness corebook, Deviant the Renegades. As I mentioned in that review, it was my first proper dive into the setting, and it was a deceptively emotional experience. If you're curious as to what I am talking about, please check out the review I did for that book. I will, however, be spoiling one element of that review for you right now. Deviant the Renegades makes what I think is a half-assed inclusion of the virtues and vices system, which serve as anchors for mortal characters, but the list of them is not in that book, but in the Chronicles of Darkness corebook, which I find rather irritating. I didn't like feeling forced to buy books because mechanics and features in other books felt incomplete, yet here I am with a big blue book on my lap, a victim of capitalism once more. Petty stabs aside, there were other reasons why I purchased it. I had plans for running a variety of mortal-themed games using the system, and it just made sense to use that, rather than sticking with a world of darkness for said ideas. But why is that? What is slowly converting me to the Chronicles of Darkness way of things? But before we do that, here are the rules to the Lore by Night book reviews. I will explore snippets of the lore, mechanics and rules found within the tome. I will look as to how they are presented and easily they're conveyed to new and old players alike. As this is a review written and presented by me, all thoughts and opinions are my own, so if you disagree with something I have said, that is totally fine. It does not mean that you are right and I am wrong and vice versa. As with my previous book reviews, I will start at the very beginning, which is the physical book itself, which currently sits nicely upon my lap. It is a letter-sized hardback book made out of that slightly squishy cardboard material, meaning it will mark easily. The most noticeable of these are found along the top of the corners of the book, and because I used my copy a fair amount, one can see the bends in the plastic film that envelopes the cover, most notably across the spine of the book. This does not bother me too much, but I will know that sort of thing will annoy people. My solution to this is purchase the PDF copy. Regardless whether you chose to purchase a physical or digital copy, you will find that the quality of the artwork and the book itself just pops beautifully. Chronicles of Darkness books are interesting when compared to other TTRPG books that they all stick to a small collection of colours and shades. Changing the Lost adopts different light and dark greens, whereas Deviant the Renegade adopts a collection of reds. The Chronicles of Darkness corebook uses navy and washed out blues, which I immediately liked as blue is my favourite colour. At first, I wasn't too sure what I thought of this direction, as I was unconvinced whether you could capture a game's entire mood with a single colour. This is probably why I am not an art director, for I was very narrow-minded. The dark blues and intense black shadows invoke a strong sense of shaded mystery, much like the spooky monster you and the rest of the group are searching for or hunting you. The varied art styles do a fantastic job at conveying this, from the traditional Onyx Path lifelike hybrids to the more action-focused graphic novel-styled pieces. A whole range of emotions are conveyed, and there isn't really a bad piece here. I am particularly fond of the one on page 59 and almost everything in chapter 5 of the book. What totally blows all competition out of the water are the very sinister, twisted scenes by Samuel Aria that dominate the beginning of each chapter. They really drive the message home, as you really have no fucking clue what any of these monsters slash spirit slash mechanical abominations are, which I feel is the point. It grabs your interest, pulling you in to learn the truth and come up with your own discoveries and ideas. When you open the book and read the short story that is commonplace in World and Chronicles of Darkness products, you are greeted with an introductory chapter that details what the book aims to cover and what you will find inside. From the very first sentence, it is very clear that this core book is one fueled by helplessness and mystery. In this world of darkness, you play as mortals as you investigate investigate and learn about whatever it is you are looking for. You may be a group of young friends who hear strange noises in some relative's cabin in the mountains, or clubgoers who see something they shouldn't in the alleyway. Whatever it is, you have a ravenous hunger to learn more. The Chronicles of Darkness, previously the New World of Darkness, is an extension of the World of Darkness, taking some of the themes with it. It is a dark reflection of our own. Corruption runs through governments, private organizations, and various subcultures. It is a world very similar to our own. The technology is the same, as are the petty emotions, desires, and ambitions that drives us out of bed each day and night, as the people in this world are different things altogether. In this world, werewolves, mages, demons, fairies, mummies, vampires, and even more horrific creatures all exist. The rest of the chapter is much more straightforward in its delivery. Each of the 5 chapters are presented clearly to the reader, as well as an engaging and easy to understand breakdown of the Storyteller system, which includes what the players and Storyteller are and not responsible during the games, which really helps to ease the new TTRPG enthusiast into this game line. Further adding to this list of inspirational media sections, some recommended Chronicles of Darkness books and a list of other game lines, such as, but not limited to, Vampire the Requiem, Werewolf the Forsaken, and Promethean the Created. Absent from this list is Deviant the Renegades, purely because it didn't exist when the Chronicles of Darkness core book was published. The chapter ends with a lexicon almost filling 2 pages with every useful term in the book, which will obviously be explored fully in the following chapters. Chapter 1 presents the reader with what is probably the most important chapter to the player, which is the character creation chapter, which already places a different focus when compared to the World of Darkness it was spawned from, by which I mean mechanics are seemingly placed above story and metaplot. That isn't something to snort at, for this is a different franchise, so a different direction is warranted. There's obviously more to this, which I will explain later in this review. As for the chapter itself, I'm not going to go over the character creation too much, as the previous episode of the podcast explores that fully better than I could do here. There are, however, a couple of things I want to provide commentary on. First, I think the replacement of humanity with integrity is a subtly genius shift in tone. I've always found it weird that mortals in the World of Darkness had a humanity tracker. They are human. It makes no sense they are trying to uphold their humanity. The very definition of the word integrity speaks volumes about the well-being of the mortals of the Chronicles of Darkness. New discoveries and revelations, for lack of a better word, has a profound effect on their understanding and placement in the world, which are enforced via breaking points, which encourage you to think about what got your character involved with whatever is going on in the plot and what is the most traumatic thing that has happened in their life so far. Such supernatural discoveries are not as mentally crippling as Lovecraftian monstrosities, but are still pretty damning over time. I also think the replacement and altering of nature and demeanour with virtue and vice is another interesting choice, one that I like a lot. It simplifies things down to a more manageable scale, but it makes it much easier for one to feed into the other. It is more grounded and realistic for players to get their heads around, without the need to do a brief philosophy course with their character in mind. The chapter goes on to explain what the different attributes and skills mean and what each level allows one to do, in a similar vein to previous World of Darkness books. This is followed by an expansive list of merits covering physical, mental, and supernatural, though the latter are perhaps the smallest of the merits, which makes sense, given the overall themes of the book. A group of telekinetic immortals would break the general mood of the game somewhat, unless the whole plot revolved around a runaway experiment, for example, which could provide some very interesting narratives. The other group of merits is fight styles, which I think is an interesting addition for the more physical characters to spice up their personal combat. Most of the merits in this book require a certain amount of dots in 1 or 2 skills to use, sometimes even 3, which can make it feel a little video gamey in style, particularly with the fighting styles. In this book, and the other Chronicles of Darkness books I've read, I feel this makes narrative sense. The following chapter talks about the Chronicles of Darkness version of the Storyteller system, which is mostly similar to those who are familiar with any World of Darkness game. As someone who is brand new to the Chronicles of Darkness as of the recording of this script, I should comment on how I found the general rules. Playing it is a breeze. The use of willpower is interesting, and I like the concept of the 10 again ruling, as well as the concepts behind tilts and conditions, which are kinda like status effects. Some are permanent or have to be restored/removed in a particular way, and some disappear after combat. Often in TTRPGs, we pretend our characters are all ill or injured, and in World of Darkness games, I rarely seen folks properly portray being spooked or being knocked down, but with a mechanic in place to enforce that is simply ingenious, even if some of them could be constructed as insensitive. They, alongside equipment, armour and the like, are found at the back of the book in the form of 2 appendices. The chapter goes on to provide an example of how the ST can go about using investigation as a mechanic, suggesting ideas about planning and managing the scope of an investigation, offering dice pools to determine results and what could happen next, which is obviously aimed at the newer ST, but more experienced STs can find something of value here to adapt into their own games. Similarly, social maneuvers and influential individuals have their own recommended dice pools, with the opening and closing door motifs, which I think are subtle yet very clever. That said, I do think this part of the book feels like padding for what is obviously 2 simple concepts. The rest of Chapter 2 is fairly lengthy and crunchy material meant for the ST. It talks about various mechanics, willpower, how combat works, how to manage the durability of vehicles, and so forth. It is a lot to break down, so I'll let you discover those bits by yourself. This smoothly leads into Chapter 3, which is the main storytelling chapter, which does a great job of presenting the information in the previous and introductory chapters, guiding the storyteller how to set the mood and tone of their game, both in writing and planning it. This extends to how one might go about setting the physical space around them, but one can take bits here and there for a more digital space. It talks about how to encourage and support players and gives a few leaping off points for the storyteller to be for the Chronicles of Darkness Chronicle, with a variety of examples from media. The 4th chapter of the book is a chunky chapter on antagonists, which is divided into 3 parts. The first is all about playing human antagonists, how to handle them in game, as well as a couple of pages of examples storytellers can pluck out from if the creative juices are lacking and/or need something to yeet at the player on short notice. It's nice that the book acknowledges the existence of mortal foes here, rather than making this a monster of the week sort of affair. The next part is a little weirder, as rules and mechanics of fringe-based entities called ephemeria are presented, which are things like ghosts, spirits, and other oddities created by the God Machine, which I will touch upon in a couple of minutes. Whilst you are told how to make your own, including powers, unique conditions they can inflict onto characters, and how they influence and affect the mortals, there are no actual examples for STs, which can be a little daunting for new STs to the setting and potentially TTRPGs in general, which can make it somewhat daunting in the process. The 3rd section is about the creation of the more confusingly named horrors, which are more physical monsters, whether it is something that exists in media like werewolves, vampires, or a gorgon, to more wacky ideas, Mothman, Bigfoot, or the 3-headed snargle-litter beast that siphons souls from its nipples. I potentially made that last one up, but it is very possible to create such a thing, as many powers, eerily known as dread powers, are provided, as well as a whole character creation styled section to make smaller minions or one larger beast, or something in between. The example of Mothman, however, was one that actually exists in the book, in addition to a small selection of others for STs to use and adapt for their own settings. This of course makes the absence of examples in the ephemeria section all the more baffling. It is a very interesting chapter that really feeds into one's creativity more than any other World of Darkness game I looked at and played before it, making the Chronicles of Darkness simultaneously more grounded and out there than the World of Darkness splats before and after it. I will say, however, that the tone of this chapter is not as strong as in the similar chapter in Hunter the Vigil 2nd edition, which was my first interaction with this sort of chapter, which I will no doubt review at some point in the near future. At this point, we are simultaneously just over halfway through the book and at the very end. With the exception of the 2 appendices that I discussed briefly, the last remaining chapter to talk about is this one, Chapter 5, which is the God Machine Chronicle portion of the core book, which is actually a book within a book. You see, the God Machine Chronicle is a source book for the new World of Darkness, now Chronicles of Darkness. It provided a rules revision of the core rules found in the World of Darkness Storyteller's System rulebook. According to its wiki entry, the changes introduced here were all carried over into the revision of the World of Darkness / Chronicles of Darkness game line and are incorporated into the Chronicles of Darkness rulebook. Snippets of it I have already mentioned. As of the writing of this episode, 8th of August 2022, the God Machine Chronicle book is no longer listed on the DriveThruRPG website and near impossible to find online in a legal manner. Because of this, I don't think it would make much sense for me to review this book within this review, as it is a fairly beefy sourcebook and I want to give it the full attention it deserves. It is tonally very different and filled with raw and mysterious intrigue, and only one of those elements is present truly in the Chronicles of Darkness core book. This is obviously mysterious intrigue. Lore is not the main focus of this game line, and I am honestly quite happy with that. A weird comment from me perhaps, knowing my brand and my previous complaints regarding certain World of Darkness 5th edition books, but this is a different game line and it is allowed to do things different than its parent series. The World of Darkness is built upon an evolving metaplot and lore lasting some 30 years. The various supernaturals, wraiths, kindred, demons, etc. all exist in the World of Darkness and have affected it in massive ways. It is perhaps the main selling point of the World of Darkness. This of course is not the World of Darkness, and if you expect to enter the Chronicles of Darkness with that mindset, you are going to be disappointed. Whilst variations of said creatures do exist in the Chronicles of Darkness, each one having their own books, rules and settings, sure, you could use this book to create mortals that would be embraced by a vampire, go through their first change as a werewolf, or experience a few bad dreams and become a beast, but that is not the focus of this book either. It is the role of mortal humans who have seen something they shouldn't have and want to investigate more, find out the truth, or perhaps more biasedly, their version of the truth. I've often criticised the need for a whole core book for the use of mortals in the World of Darkness, when plenty of source books exist out there to fulfill those helpless needs, so when I was awaiting my copy of the Chronicles of Darkness core book from DriveThruRPG, I wasn't entirely too sure what I would make of it, but having owned it for a few months now, reading over it many times, I have grown to appreciate the more sandbox approach of this line, how none of the splats are inherently connected to each other, or how you don't have to use them to make the Chronicles of Darkness more authentic. Authenticity here is what you make of it, for as mortals try and go about and find out what the fuck is going on, stripped of any powers and only what they have to hand, you quickly learn just how fucking terrifying that can be. That is ultimately what makes it stand out from Hunter the Vigil, for those who are curious. The Chronicles of Darkness core book is trying to find out what is up and trying to see what can be done, whether it is stopping or aiding said entity, investing all sorts of possibilities to work things out. Hunter the Vigil is acknowledging there are monsters everywhere and you hate it. You're going to fight a losing battle with everything you have, knowing damn well it will probably kill you. As a self-imposed forever DM, I look at the Chronicles of Darkness core book and now see ample opportunity to spook, terrify and cause great consensual grief with many plot points. I'm reminded through this book how helplessness is key to horror, and what finer way to do that than put Joe Bloggs and his buddies in an investigation way over their heads. Or how about school kids who slowly piece something together that isn't quite right about their school? In short, I am very much in favour of this sandbox approach to this game, how mechanics, even debilitating ones for the player, further improve roleplay and tension at the table. If you are one of those sorts of people who turned their nose up at it because it wasn't the same as the World of Darkness games you have spent your lives playing, perhaps give this another go and see what mad horrors you can bring to the table. If you are a player who is looking for that next horror fix, give this a go, for I feel this is horror for playable mortals done right. And for those of you who are new to the Lore by Night brand and the reviews I occasionally do, I do not do out of 10 scores because they are subjectively pointless. One person's 10 out of 10 is another's 3 out of 5 stars, which is another's minus 42 out of 100, so I shall rate this book jury rigging out of 10, as that is just as helpful as a proper out of 10 score. To be kept updated, follow the Lore by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.